Well, hey there, my name is Luke, and you're listening to the Good Folks Doing Good Work podcast, a podcast where I get to interview folks all throughout the coffee supply circle about the good they're trying to bring into the world and hopefully remind you to keep bringing good things into this world in your context. So let's get into this week's podcast. Well, today we're joined by Michael Weiser, who is the marketing team lead at Cat & Cloud. His background started in coffee as a barista. Then he took a long-term shift into the production world and worked as a creative director for a production house in California before finding himself in the marketing seat at Cat & Cloud. He's an award-winning interdisciplinary creative, which is what makes him a powerhouse in his current role. Having won the Sprudge Outstanding Design Achievement Award for print material, all the way from Santa Cruz, California, welcome to the Good Folks podcast, Michael.
Hello. Hi. You make that sound way more than I think I look at it.
Well, I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Like I said, before we were rolling, I'm just really happy to share my perspective on things. So I'm glad that you asked.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason why I wanted to have you on is because the creative side of the industry is sort of behind a curtain. And there's a lot of really talented people that are doing the creative, doing the marketing, promoting brands that don't really get a whole lot of recognition. And so that's why I wanted to have you on, is to kind of hear some of your perspective, some of your approach, and hear how you approach some things. But before we do that, what's the first coffee you ever remember drinking?
Okay, so I know this very specifically because in our orientation at Cat & Cloud, we talk about like in the coffee class, specifically when new team members are coming on, and we're doing them basically coffee class 101. We ask people, like, what's your first interaction with coffee? And for me, I remember it very specifically. When I was in middle school, when I was in junior high, my dad worked right next door, and after school I would just walk over to his office and hang out and wait to go home. And so I would always end up going to the break room. They would always have free snacks, and I was one day just looking at the coffee pot and just went, all right, what is all of this like hype? Why is everyone talking about this? Like, or why is this such a thing? And so I grab a cup and I grab the pot and I pour just a little bit in. And then I go to take a sip just because I'm like, all right, whatever, let's see what this is. That was the coldest, oldest, most disgusting thing I think I have ever put in my mouth. I assumed that just because it was there, it was good. I have no clue what it was, where it was from, like when it was brewed, anything. And from there, it just was like, yeah, no, I don't know what that is, but I don't want it. So that was the first coffee that I ever had. I think calling it coffee would be being generous.
Hey, really quickly, I have 3 things I want to share with you. Number 1, I run a consulting firm called Pomelo Coffee Consulting, and we only work with coffee roasters, and we help them with 3 things: their people, their processes, and their profit. Now, within Pomelo, I also run a cohort called Junto. There's 2 of them. One's for owners of coffee roasteries. The other one is exclusively for leaders within coffee roasteries, and both of them are structured similarly. They both have a peer-to-peer coaching portion. You can add on some one-on-one time with me. There's some learning opportunities. But man, I gotta tell you, it has been incredible to see what is possible when a group of leaders get in a virtual room together and are sharing challenges, have some learning opportunities, share the things that they're learning, share resources. It's very, very cool. And so if this sounds interesting to you, you can find out more in the show notes, or you can go to pomelocoffeeconsulting.com, and there's a whole tab there for Junto, both of those groups. Now, lastly, I'm releasing a book. It's slated to be released towards the end of the summer, early fall, and it's on the framework that I use when I work with clients. So if you want to be one of the first to receive that book, head over to my website. There's a tab for the book, and you can pre-order a book now. Back to the episode. Sure. So that probably wasn't the most memorable, or I should say the most delicious cup of coffee, though it may have been the most memorable. Do you remember the most delicious? Memorable.
Oh, man. So not to toot our own horn, I've gotten into this habit. Our admin space for Cat & Cloud is attached to our roastery, and we have a cafe right next door. So every morning when I go there, I will go grab a cup of coffee, and then I'll be drinking it, and I'll be, after like a few sips or a few minutes, I'll realize that, oh, I want to keep drinking this. Like, I want to keep reaching for the cup and keep taking a sip. And so the habit that I got into was I would walk into the roastery, and it sounds kind of dumb. It sounds silly because I do it multiple times, but I would just walk in and be like, hey, good job, everyone. We make really good coffee here.
I love it.
You all do really good work. And it's like, I'm being a little silly with it, but at the same time, I mean it. And like, I really enjoy and have a consistent experience with the coffee that we make. And that's a testament to what we do. But at the same time, like, it's just always memorable because it's always delicious, because that's part of what we want. We want coffees that are sweet with clean flavors and a lasting finish, you know, and we deliver on that. And so, sure, you can talk about these geishas. Like, we have a geisha on our menu right now, and you can talk about all these wild different coffees, wild different processes. But honestly, the one that's the most delicious is the one that's consistently delicious. And
ooh, say that again. We need to hear that. We need to hear that out for the folks in the back.
So we had a geisha that came on our menu a few years ago, and I wanted to make this video about it. I wanted to be like trying to tell people what geishas are. It's not just a expensive coffee, you know. It's more than just a morning cup that you make. It's something to experience. And the conversation around making the video came to be like, well, why are we talking about this? Why? It's like, yeah, geishas are cool, but what's really cool is the cup of coffee that you have all the time that is delicious all the time. Geishas are fun to experience.
Right.
But making something that's consistent and making something that's always there is just more impactful to more people, because you can have coffees that are out of reach, but for people, you have coffees that are out of reach for people just because of the wild processing and the costs that go into it and this, that, and the other. But then you can have the coffees that are awesome all the time, that give people this reliable, consistent experience that some people depend on in the morning to get up. And that is more impactful than a wild coffee that you experience once and maybe get 8 ounces of.
Yeah.
And so it's really funny. At our roastery location, we have this big housing construction thing that's going on behind it. And I saw a couple of construction workers walking back. There's a 7-Eleven down the street, and they were walking back. They had their bag and their cups of coffee. And I was just like, why haven't we gone and just set up a big 5-gallon thing and just given out cups of coffee to the workers in the morning?
Right.
Like, not because like, oh, we want to get you to come in, but we're right there. They're right there.
100%.
Why not do it? The project's not done, so maybe we'll still do it. But yeah, I don't know. I that's why. So for me, my favorite coffees are just the ones that are consistent, which is why, like, for me, when I first started getting into drinking single origins, I would just get a bag indiscriminately and just like, I don't know anything about this, so I'm just going to grab this one. And the first ones that I realized that I consistently liked were from Guatemala. And I still to this day will go, yeah, it's from Guatemala. I know I'm going to like it. I know it's going to have these different characteristics, and yeah, I'm going to enjoy it. I don't know if that answered your question. I think that 100%. Went really round.
No, I think it's something that we as an industry need to consider in this moment, because you get into coffee, you get excited about it. The things you start learning are, oh, there's processing, and oh, there's all these new processing methods, and there's these different ways that coffee can taste. And we forget that the coffee that is right in front of us is the one that we can also enjoy. And our vision can get clouded by the exciting, and it's not even just processing, it's equipment and it's all this other stuff, that we forget that there's beauty and there is enjoyment and love and joy from the delicious Guatemalan coffee that's 84, 85, sweet and tasty.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think especially for us who've been in the industry for a long time, it's important to circle back towards that and to remember there's 2 billion cups of coffee drank every day. That's a huge number. Most of those are not some frou-frou processing. Most of those are just your standard cup of joe, and we can't forget that in specialty.
Yeah, I think right now, like I said, we have a geisha on the menu at Cat and Cloud, and we're starting to understand this. Where do coffees like that fit on our menu? And we want to have an offering for kind of everyone. And so it's not that like all of our offering is going to be anaerobic co-ferments. It's not about having that, but there is a place for those things. At the end of the day, we are a coffee company, so that kind of has to cater to all the different people that like coffee, from the person that wants to geek out about the specs, but also to the person that is going to work in the morning. All of those people, and that's kind of why coffee is really cool, because all of those different people interact with the same thing. When I was younger, I remember I was on the phone with somebody who was, I'll call them my first love. And it was just, I was just an adult and like just barely out of high school, and they had moved to Seattle to go to college. And I remember being on the phone with them, and I was outside and I said, "Oh, can you see the moon? Can you see the moon where you are?" And they were like, "Yeah, I can." I'm like, "We are looking at the same thing." Mm-hmm. And I think why I think coffee is so cool is because that is the same thing. All of these different people and all of these different places are all interacting with this same thing. And it is really interesting to see, just to think about that. Mm-hmm. Sorry, weird love story there, but
no, I think we're dancing around the same topic, and it's just we're all drinking coffee, and maybe it's a delicious geisha that has some unique processing and it tastes mind-blowing, but those mind-blowing coffees are honestly few and far between in the grand scheme of things, and both are important. Both are coffee, and both are in some ways necessary to keep our attention and keep us excited about it. Most coffee roasters have this marketing dilemma where they ask themselves, am I marketing this product to another business, B2B, or am I marketing this product B2C to the end consumer? Both have dramatically different needs. So how do you conceptualize that when you're thinking about building a marketing plan for maybe a new coffee or a class that you're offering or something new that you're doing? How do you conceptualize those two audiences? Is there a hard line in the sand that you conceptualize your wholesale accounts versus your end consumers that are buying directly from you? Or is it a bit more muddy?
I've worked on this mentality for a few years now, and it's been, I guess you could say, the mission for how I go about things with all of our stuff at Cat and Cloud. At Cat and Cloud, we do have, we have our partner program, we have wholesale partners, we have our social media, and all of the things we share with our guests who come in and choose to interact with us. And for me, the mentality is the same for both. I want to create things that are helpful. And that can be applied to both our wholesale partners who are running a business, who are just starting a business, who are just opening a cafe. And I want to create things that are helpful to a guest who are just trying to figure out what coffee they should pick. Somebody just came in, they don't know our coffee, they've never been in, and they're standing there for 5 minutes looking at the bags. Well, I can talk to them. I can help them figure out what to pick. I can also interact with a wholesale partner who is messaging us on Instagram being like, hey, can I come in and schedule a cupping? I think that applies for everyone who works for Cat and Cloud. Is we are trying to be helpful and hospitable to the people who engage with us however they are wanting to engage with us. They are starting their own business and therefore they need answers for things. Well, we want to help them. We want to be hospitable. We want to show that hospitality to people because we think that is what can help move the needle forward for so many different people, for the industry, for others. We've seen it happen in our lives where people take the time to help and share and help us move forward. What that can mean to people when that happens. It doesn't have to be these big things. It doesn't have to be, oh, you're just getting started, let's give you everything. It can be the small moments. Yeah. And that is kind of this core idea at the center of our company, where it is, the small moments can make the biggest difference. And that's why, a cafe can be so impactful. A consistent thing in the morning, a consistent cup of coffee, a consistent positive experience when you're on your way to work, that can add up to being this big impactful thing in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Same way with a wholesale partner who's starting out a business, who feels the stress and feels that pressure of starting a business, and then us being able to answer one question that might not be a big thing to us, but to them was something that they've been hitting their head against a wall for the last month over. So there's no real gatekeeping as far as that. We're just trying to be helpful, I think, is the way I look at those two things. And if you go with that mentality of trying to be helpful, it doesn't matter whether it's wholesale or whether it's guests, still trying to help them. They just have different needs.
Well put. And there's two things you said. One, trying to build things that are helpful, because so much of the conversation for owners, because I interact with owners all the time, and what they're saying is, I feel kind of divided here. Like, my wholesale accounts need something, my retail customers need something different, my online buyers might need something slightly different as well, because maybe they don't even live in the same state. Maybe they live states away from you.
Yeah.
And so I really like the approach, instead of being like, how do we sell more things, to ask the question, how do we be more helpful for both of those conversations? Because that's how you make a difference in your buyers' lives, specifically for your accounts. I don't see enough coffee roasters thinking about their accounts and thinking about the questions that they have that they themselves can answer as roasters. You've been through this. You know how to dial in coffees. You know how to price out a menu. You hopefully, and if you have those answers, you're an asset. You're not just a vendor. You're an asset to your wholesale accounts.
That's kind of something where I'm finding myself in a position of right now. We have several different partners that are wanting to do white labeling for some of our coffees, and they like that idea, but they're an even smaller company than we are. I mean, we're not necessarily a small business, but we're definitely a small company. I think you said this in my bio that you so eloquently wrote, but it's just, I have a lot of skills, and one of them is design to some degree. And one of the things that we use as an asset is, oh, hey, you want to white label things? Hey, we've got this guy on our team. He'll help you. Oh, you need help? Okay, cool. We can help you do those things. It's only a benefit to us to be helpful. It's only a benefit to anyone to be helpful. But we know that we're in the hospitality industry, and that doesn't end outside of the cafe doors. That's a mentality, that's a value that we have throughout everything we do.
You've had so much experience in the creative space working with established brands and brands that are new and maybe have very little recognition. Do you take a different approach in design and strategy for an established brand versus a net new company that you walk into?
So backstory on me with Cat and Cloud is, I knew Chris and Jared before Cat and Cloud was the thing. I grew up in Santa Cruz. Verve opened in Santa Cruz, and it was right around the time when I was working in a second wave cafe. I was just getting into coffee, and somebody told me, oh, you have to go check out Verve. At the time, they made all of their pour-overs using Chemexes. The renaissance of Chemex was happening at the time, and so I was just like, oh, great, I gotta go. This will be awesome. So I was a cafe rat there and met Jared, eventually met Chris, and just became a person in the community. So much so, when Verve started opening their cafes, their multiple cafes in town, I was just like, you know what? I want to go be the first guest when they open. Like, I want to be first one in line. I want to be at the door. So I did it for all of them. I did it for their downtown location. I did it for their Seabright, which is their roastery location. And I did it for their 1010 location. So it's like all of their locations in town, I was the first one at the door. And so at the time, Chris and Jared had, moved on from Verve. But when I heard that they were coming back and opening their own shop, I was like, well, I'm going to be the first guest there. That's going to happen. So sure enough, I was. And I just was a consistent patron there. Same thing for the rest of our locations. Aptos, first guest there. Swift Street, first guest there. I'll give you a little secret. I wasn't our first guest at our Abbott Square, which was our second location, because I was out of town.
Ugh, what a miss.
To this day, it's a little asterisk on my record that anyway, I never planned on working for Cat and Cloud. It wasn't necessarily what I thought I was going to do. So when it came time to actually me having a job there and then me being in charge of branding, it was just, I didn't think that I was ever going to be a part of it. And so getting to the point is, it was very much established to a degree.
Totally.
It was a new company, but the brand of Cat and Cloud was it was something that had been engaged with the public enough to where the public had kind of taken over the identity of it a little bit, especially with our initial branding was this very hand-drawn. It was very personable. It was very, the original logo for Cat and Cloud was a doodle by Julia, who is one of the owners of Dune. She's actually on the cover of Barista Mag right now, which is really awesome. And so it's fun to have that heritage in the original branding of the company. But it was a double-edged sword, because branding is more than just the design. It's more than just the typeface you use. It's more than just the colors you pick. Branding there's two sides of it. There is the promise that you make as a company, and that promise is shown in everything you do, everything you put out, every action you take. And then there is the perception of the guests coming in, how they see things, how those actions you take actually come across to them. And in the middle is where those two things align is where your brand is. And where we was in this very personable, very hand-drawn, really fun space. So there was already an establishment with people of like, that's what it is. And there was kind of this world of, oh, well, theirs is hand-drawn, therefore I could do that. Therefore, what I can do is then the branding. Mm-hmm. And so there's this interesting level of like, okay, if I come in, now I'm responsible for this thing that I never intended to be, never thought I was going to be. That's a lot of pressure, especially as a fan first. How do I honor that? I'm not trying to tell everyone, hey, what you think the brand is wrong. I'm just trying to move it forward. So it's an established brand to the point of, I have to honor what has already been done and what people already think it is, but I have to do it in a way that moves us forward. So basically, an established brand versus a new one is you have some baggage almost. You have this you have this responsibility to those who are already there and already bought into what you're doing. Granted, they're not the owners of it, but they damn well sure are. Like, they do play a huge part in it, because They are the ones, the door swings that they make allow you to be there. 100%. And there is a responsibility to that. We have been slowly but surely putting in new menus into our cafes. When they opened, we just had these acrylic signs that had vinyl letters on them, and they're really beautiful and they were just really beautiful, really nice in the space. But when it came time to like updating food, updating prices, unfortunately, they weren't the easiest things to update. And so
sure,
we were trying to figure out, how do we do this? We have all these criteria of what we want to do for menus. And we came up with these really big signs that are these backlit boxes. And it's really cool on its own. But when you see it in the space, it's definitely like, I feel like that's not what the promise was. It feels like a little bit of a betrayal to not the promise, but the perception.
Sure.
So people will walk in and be like, it was this really cute, bright cafe, and now it's this, monstrous lit up thing. And it's something that I'm sensitive to. Like, I know when people come in that it's like, I want to respect what you believe this space is.
Sure.
So that's just where an established brand is really just part of having that established brand is really about respecting the people who help to make it what it is. And that includes the guests versus a new brand. You really have to understand again that you can believe what you're trying to put out, but again, there is that perception that moves the center. there is that, people are going to adopt things. What you put out, there's going to be some translation, and you need to account for that. And you need to, you need to understand that that's going to be there. I'll give an example. When I updated our logo, when I came in and created a new logo for us to use, one that was a little bit more official and a little more ubiquitous in places. Again, when I started the project, I never thought like, oh, this is going to be now used everywhere and this is going to be adopted. When I first made it, I was just like, oh, I'm making some stuff and there's going to be a process. Like somebody's going to come and review this and there's going to be a whole thing. And it just turned out they're like, nope, we're just going to go with this.
Approved.
Okay.
Sure.
To the point where I went on a wholesale trip with just like a day trip with our partner program team. And we were in some corporate office and people were like, oh, what's cat and loud? And I'm like, what? They're like, it says cat and loud. And I'm like, no, that's a C. That's oh, yeah. I see what's happening here.
Yeah.
No one. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's like we had the best intention for it. I worked really hard to lay everything out so that it was all lined in a way that I could use, and I knew what it was. And so, it was at that point, it was this kind of new brand because, again, we were interacting with people who didn't know us and our intentions kind of went out the window because that perception missed the mark that we were aiming for.
Sure.
I don't know if that answers the question of
it does.
New brand.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I think there's two things. One, I think for an existing brand, what I'm hearing you say, and maybe you can correct me if I'm missing what you're intending, but for an existing brand, there's a good bit of listening necessary to design well for them and to design in such a way that you're not sort of pushing against them, but evolving what it already exists and what they understand the brand to be.
Yeah, you're trying pushing against them is a good image. It's almost kind of like you're stiff arming them and be like, no, that's not right. It's just like, well, they're there. Like if you
they pay your checks.
if you do that and then you roll out this new thing or you do something else, they're already on the back foot. They're already halfway out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's if you're a brand that, wants to change things up and that's part of your mission, that's part of your DNA, then that's fine. But if you're a brand if you're a company, if you're a cafe that has these repeat guests that come in, like our original cafe is very much a community. It's right on the edge of, residential area.
Sure.
And there's people that come in since we've opened that live there and it's very much their backyard essentially.
Sure.
And it's difficult it would be difficult if we were just up and like, no, actually we have this really strict cutoff now and we're doing it for X, Y, and Z reasons. It's just like, no, we're a part of the community. Like, we have to take that into account.
Right.
So it definitely is a matter of you got to kind of respect things a little bit.
I really appreciate what you said about there's a good bit of translation. And I think it's probably true for existing brands too. But when you're bringing a new brand out, I loved how you put that into perspective of like what you are intending might not be what's picked up, might not be what's received. You can design in a bubble, but on the flip side, once it's in the public domain, they get to translate what they're understanding your brand to be.
Perception is a really interesting thing. Again, I'll use the example of the challenge I had when I was rebranding Cat and Cloud. Again, it's Cat and Cloud. That's the two softest, fuzziest things in the world. People hear that and they hear Cat and Cloud. They're like, oh, are you a cat cafe? Am I going to come in and get, cats and like pet my cats next to my coffee? And there's that perception based on the name alone. Like no branding, no images, no design. You just type out the names Cat and Cloud and what comes to mind. And so you already have one hand tied behind your back there for us. And so it's just it was a really interesting challenge to find that thin line of what we want to be, the promise we want to make, and the perception that people have. We got into this zone with mostly with all of our design stuff, where everything was soft. Everything was this almost bubble gum. We had blue bags, and there was always this heritage of kind of blue and pink with the company. And people would take, again, going back to that hand-drawn nature, people would take that and be like, oh, Cat and Cloud is their logo. I can draw a cat, I can draw a cloud, therefore that is their logo. What do you mean? It's a hand-drawn logo of a cat and a cloud. It is what it is. And so I was just trying to respect that and create something that was very, we use a typeface now that is this very neutral, hand-drawn typeface that has a lot of versatility to it. It's not any one. It's got just enough character to be interesting, not enough character to be fully recognizable, unless you're me and see it on packages inside of Target.
Of course.
But yeah, it's a really interesting thing of understanding what you want to say. And for us, where we are now, we knew what we were. And for me, I came in and saw what people thought we were. And it was, okay, I need to create a little bit of a harder line here. And it was a needle that got threaded very carefully.
Yeah.
So
I think you've done a great job of caring for and honoring a brand that is just beloved across the nation and even outside of the country. And you've done a good job of listening.
That's interesting to me because, like I said, I grew up here in Santa Cruz, and it is kind of a coffee bubble.
Sure.
We are putting out an episode of the Cat and Cloud podcast next week where Nick Trezulli from Fellow is being interviewed with Chris. And he talks about his backstory, about him coming up in coffee. His thing was he was out here visiting family, and a friend of his said, oh, you got to go check out Sightglass. It's this new cafe. And I was hearing that when he was recording at being, I have photos of myself in front of Sightglass when it was just a roll-up door and a coffee cart serving Verve.
You were probably there on day one.
No, I wasn't there on day one, but I wasn't at that point yet.
Okay.
But it's just really interesting to hear that and be like, oh, wait, I was there for that. Oh, he roasted coffee at Devout. I went to Devout before when they were a coffee cart too. Like it's weird for me to think that this is normal for anyone else. I definitely feel like I'm a little bit in like this coffee bubble.
Sure.
So when I hear that other people know Cat and Cloud, I'm like, how do you know us? Because I thought it was to me, it's just a small coffee shop. Yeah. So I'm glad that I'm doing right by people who know us and love us.
Yeah, of course. That's my perception.
Again, perception versus promise. I'm glad I'm meeting the mark.
Yes. So marketing is frankly a buzzy word, especially in coffee, and some folks kind of push against it in coffee. But what opportunity do you see in the marketing space that you're surprised other coffee roasters are not seizing onto?
Yeah, marketing is a really buzzy word for sure. If you think about marketing, there's these traditional things that go along with it. Marketing is kind of an appendage to the sales team, it seems like. In my experience of learning traditional and understanding the traditional marketing things, it is very much of what's your funnel with customers, how many interactions is it taking for them to actually make a purchase, and all of these things that just attach to, again, sales versus the content side of things, which is the meat, again, for us, it's how are we being helpful? That is really what matters most. So for us, just being natural and being natural to us and sharing what is most valuable to us, that matters the most. For example, we're just starting to dabble in like paid advertisements I'm sure it is with other cafes and other roasters. The subscription service is probably the most lucrative thing you could be doing. And so for us, a lot of our engagement and a lot of our reach has been organic. So it's like you say, people nationwide love Cat and Cloud. Again, for me, I'm like, well, that's weird because we've just been doing whatever we do. We're not like trying to reach people. We're just putting stuff out there, now that we are starting to like, okay, well, what does it look like to specifically try to reach new people? And, what are we doing for these advertisements? And we're just talking about, okay, how can we talk about ourselves organically? How can we talk about what we do organically in the best way possible? Not because we think it's going to be this most beautiful campaign of advertisements, but it's just because, hey, we want to try and reach more people. Not because we believe in what we put out, but also because we're there and it's an avenue to try. Yeah, it's really funny. I saw an ad from a brewing method alternative company recently. Let's say that.
Got it.
And it was like this AI generated person and script talking in front of like B-roll. And I was just like, this is not making me want to buy this product.
Yeah.
Like in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's like, I get that this is probably a part of numbers and that traditional marketing approach, but the content is really betraying the product.
Yeah.
And so I think that is for us where we've been for marketing, where it's like, we're just trying to be true to ourselves and we're trying to be as close to that promise as a brand that we've made.
Yeah.
Because if you look at social media right now, and that's the biggest avenue I feel like companies have is social media at this moment, I'll say. You could get trapped in kind of two things. You could do kind of what we're talking about, which is trying to do that most authentic thing to us, or you could do the trendy thing, which gets you in front of people because the thing you're doing is trendy but then what are you doing to your promise by doing that? What are you saying when you do that? So that's kind of how we look at what we are doing as far as quote unquote marketing. It's really just about engaging our promise as authentically as we can. And I don't know if there's some secret sauce for companies who are getting started of like, oh, you really need to jump on this.
Yeah.
There isn't something that somebody hasn't tried, or somebody will try to jump in your emails and promise you about ROI, or like, these are the three things. These are the three different factors you have to move to get your web sales up. It's just like I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the same ad for somebody trying to sell me some access to some Google sheet.
Totally.
But if you're just authentic to yourself, being able to be that and be that consistently, once you have that down, you'll be able to then step into these other avenues, like, again, paid advertising, so that you can extend your reach. That, I think, is kind of the crucial point at the center of all of marketing. Sure, you can try a bunch of different things and throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, but then you're kind of beholden to not your promise. And I think people can see through that BS a little bit, a lot of it. And so, yeah, I think currently right now with tariffs hitting coffee and with all the different things right now locally, there's a big conversation around service fees and all these different things. It's kind of a tricky time right now. Things are getting more expensive.
Yeah.
And people see things as a commodity. People still see things as a commodity. They want to pay for the commodity of the drink, but they don't really understand paying for the business.
Yeah.
And so that's why being authentic to your promise is the most reliable thing that you could do. The more you try to chase trends, you're not in control of, what you have to do.
Yeah.
And if you make a promise of like, we're a neighborhood cafe that we're going to we're going to do our best to improve the community. But then you start doing things where you have to apply, service fees because that's the way that the community does it, or you name it, something that is causing the industry to move. You start going back to different types of coffees. You start doing nothing but anaerobic coffees because that's what the industry you're in is a part of, but you're not paying attention to that original promise you made of, I'm helping out my local community. No matter how you market yourself, that's going to be noticed. And that betrayal is betrayal's a strong word.
It is in some ways.
Yeah, it's that Yeah, that will be noticed by the people who come through your doors. Yeah. Anyway, that's marketing from me.
The reason I asked that question is because I thought that you would go that direction. I'm super aligned with that because I talk to folks all the time who are wanting a magic bullet, and the magic bullet doesn't exist. And everything that you have talked about, frankly, this entire conversation has been about identity, in my opinion, about determining what it is that you believe in. You've mentioned promise multiple times. What are the promises you're making to the people that buy your coffee, both wholesale and retail? And if you don't know what those two things are, then it doesn't really matter what marketing you do.
Yeah.
Because it's going to feel like the AI ad that you saw for this company or that company, and it's not going to feel real. It's not going to connect. And so I really appreciate that. So my takeaway is determine your identity and determine the promise you're making to your customers, to your buyers before you do really any marketing in quotations.
Yeah, you have to know who you are before you put yourself out there. My career before this, I was in video production, and I was getting into a really niche area of color correction. And there was a local youth center in my hometown that was putting on like a video editing movie week. And I found out about it. I'm like, I'd like to help. And so I was like, oh, sure, I'll teach a class on like the importance of color correction. I'll teach a class on the importance of, how color can help tell the story. And so I put together this 1-day curriculum for it and went and taught it and did the best I could. Later that year, I went to like this industry event and they have a bunch of different sessions that I would usually go to and talk to the people who do this stuff. And I was telling one person who was teaching a class on color correction, I was like, oh yeah, I was trying to teach a class, and then I was trying to show them this one thing, and then I realized, oh wait, I don't know how I would do this. Shoot. And they said, yeah, you got to know how to do it before you teach it. And I was just like, I feel so bad right now. And so it's the same thing where it's just like, you got to know who you are before you try to promote it. And if you don't, then you're just you're not giving your guests, you're not giving the people you're trying to reach something, a good place to stand, a good solid thing to hold on to. I've been getting into swimming for exercise, and my partner, she's been in the pool ever since, for her entire life. And I still want the ledge. I still want to hold on to the gutter. And it's, I'm comfortable. I can swim, but having that ledge there, it still means a lot to me because It's like, okay, cool. I can count on this. I know what it means. And that is a symbol for companies for how they talk about themselves. I'm working on a newsletter for us for this weekend, and I started writing out this whole thing. I had an idea for what I wanted the topic to be. I got like 5 paragraphs into it, and then the day ended and I went back the next day, opened it up, and I'm like, what am I trying to say? What? Okay. So I started at the top. This is my thesis, and I wrote 2 sentences. I'm like, okay, that's the guiding light. I can hold on to this when I'm writing this thing, and I know what I'm going to be telling to people by writing this. So it's that same mentality for everything you do. Yeah. We're working on having a specific spot on our coffee menu for these, exotic coffees, I'll say. Mm-hmm. We like having them because they're a fun thing to experience. That's kind of all when it started. We're trying to say, oh yeah, we've got this geisha, we're going to do another one. And we're like, how do we talk about them? What is the thesis of us having these on the menu? So we worked on this little document of like, oh, well, these mean this, this, and this. And then our director of coffee wrote all this up and was like, this is what this program means. And then they gave it to us on the marketing department. And we were like, yeah, this isn't enough. Like, what does that mean? What does this mean? Where does this information come from? Like, there's a whole lot more that's here. I'm glad you've condensed it. I had this really funny moment. We had a planning meeting about these coffees, where Kira, she's on the marketing team with me. She met with Dulce, our director of coffee, and they went through the whole document. And then I took notes for it, and I had it like be summarized. And then the notes basically said what the original document said. And I'm like, great. we've come full circle.
Not helpful.
Well, it was, because it's like, cool, now at least we now know all the information to back this up.
Sure.
Like, it was there, it just wasn't said.
Yeah.
But now we know, and now we can talk to them. It's like, these are coffees that are, rare varietals or special unique processes or award winning. And it's just like, cool, now we know that those are the coffees that we're going to put into this slot. And this is how we talk about them. Like, hey, this 8-ounce bag of coffee is $42. Why? Oh, well, it's this rare varietal. Or, oh, it's this really interesting process that takes 4 extra weeks. It allows us to understand what we're saying before we say it. And that is true through everything that I think a company should do. It takes time, but that time will pay off. If you just take the time up front to understand what you're trying to say, you'll be able to say it more confidently, faster, and with more authority than if you just made it up on the spot.
I think about this often. When I was a barista, there was these CBD chocolates that just like showed up in the cafe one day. This is like, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 years ago, something like that. And none of us knew why they were here and why they were in our cafe and why we were selling them. We didn't have any other chocolates or sweet things besides pastries. They were very expensive, and we weren't told how to sell them, how to explain to the customer what they were. And this was again this was before weed was legal in Illinois. So there was all of this education around it that I was like, why were we not told anything about this? And we sold 2 bars in, it was like 6 or 7 months we had them on our counter. We sold 2 bars.
Yeah.
And the reason why I bring up that story is that if we just had the information of to ask your question that you asked of your newsletter, what am I trying to say? If with this product, what am I trying to say with having this product? And also, why are we selling it?
Yeah.
We probably could have sold a shitload of CBD chocolate bars.
If we knew.
Because there was no other cafes that were doing that at the time. And we probably, if we would just have known. And so I want to credit you and Dulce and the rest of the team for going through that process of saying, what are we trying to say with these coffees? And frankly, with all of your products, you have to have that conversation.
Yeah. We switched our pastry providers a year and a half ago. And in that time, we had this big rollout. We had this, it's silly because it's pastries, but at the same time, it's pastries. Like, some people come in, and my go-to when it was 2008 and I would go to Verve, my go-to in the afternoon was I would get a cappuccino and I would get a raspberry thumbprint cookie. Oof. And that was my go-to. Like, I'm like, so this is a great little afternoon treat.
Yeah. I
love it. And then they stopped serving the thumbprint cookies. And I'm like, I don't know what to get. I don't want a cappuccino. Yeah. It affected me. I mean, great. Yeah. It's a little treat at the end of the day. And how much should that really affect you? But at the same time, it was a little piece of joy that I would get in the afternoon. And so for us, it was, okay, well, we're changing something that is rather significant for some of our guests. And we need to understand, we're experts. We need to understand what we're offering, why we're offering it, and who it's good for. We are a big values company. We have 5 different values. One of them is expertise. One of them is we are experts in our craft, and understanding our offering is part of
important. Kind of important.
People are coming to us with questions. And I just posted a reel about this the other day from our snippet from our podcast, but it's like saying no with confidence can actually be more beneficial, even though you might be giving somebody bad news.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we don't have those buckwheat scones anymore, but we've got these really awesome XYZ, fill in the blank. And understanding the menu and taking the time to roll it out was a huge benefit to our team, because they knew how to speak on it confidently, and they could answer all the questions from guests that maybe are a little frustrated that they don't have the original offerings.
Yeah.
But if you take the time to communicate what you're trying to communicate to those who need to understand how to communicate it, wow, that was a big sentence, it's going to be only beneficial.
Coffee's full of artists and creatives, some better than others. What do you wish would go away in coffee design?
So I think there's a duality that happens with coffee design. People are fighting for space. It's this interesting push and pull of brand awareness versus we're trying to talk about this thing that we're really passionate about. And a lot of roasters love the relationships they make with the growers, with the producers. And that is super important, especially as a country that can't grow coffee. I love you, Hawaii. But, it's the coffee growing regions, the coffee growing countries in the world are very important, and the people who do all that work are super important, and so there's something to be celebrated. And I think coffee roasters believe that. But then you look at packaging that is very design forward, and it's just like, oh, we're really loud and we're saying, we're putting ourselves front and forward and front and center, and then it's, oh yeah, there's coffee information over here. It's just like, but we love our producers. And it's just like,
yeah,
okay, what am I supposed to be looking at here?
Yeah.
When I redesigned our bags, that was kind of this big question, because on our old packaging, we had in bigger letters, we had Colombia or we had Honduras, and then in these smaller letters it was like Damian Chavez, and it's just like, but we love Damian Chavez, but Damian Chavez, and it's just like, well, what are we trying to promote here? What is the most important thing? And I'm not trying to say it needs to go away, but I think if people are trying to promote the producers, we should promote the producers. Yeah. And having your logo be the biggest thing on the bag isn't necessarily the most important. Again, if you're talking about that consistent experience, people should be able to know it's your bag without having to see your logo. Yeah. They should be able to know it's your packaging without having to see your logo. So if that's the case, why not make the thing that you think and you say is most important the most prevalent thing?
Totally.
Which is why when we redid our packaging, I was just like, well, wait, why isn't the producer's name the most important? Like, why isn't that the biggest? Why isn't that the loudest thing on the bag? In the cafes, we call a coffee by the producer's name, but on our old bags, the biggest thing was the country of origin. And so it's just like, oh, can I get the Colombian? And on the rare occasion that we had two offerings from the same region, they'd be like, oh, well, which one? It's like, oh yeah, and not knowing. But now it's just like, great, I want the Damien and Wilson, which is a blend we have right now. Or it's like, I want the Carlos Pola. And so we're talking about these things that are the most important part of it. And it's just like, we're highlighting the producer's hard work, and it highlights the people who make it more, which I think is something that everybody in the coffee industry thinks is valuable and thinks is important. So yeah, I follow all design stuff and I just see what everyone's doing, and it just makes so little sense that your company's name is the biggest thing on there when it's the almost least important. When it comes to branding, there's always these classic, almost folklore stories where, think about whoever invented the Coke bottle. They were saying, oh, I want a bottle that you can recognize even when it's broken on the ground. You'll see it and you'll know that is a Coke bottle. Like that's kind of some recognition that's impressive.
Totally.
And that kind of happened for me. It was before we had our new bags, when we still had our old bags. But I was walking through the grocery store parking lot, and I saw on the ground, I saw a little tag that I saw it and went, that is the tear top off of our bag. Somebody bought a bag of our coffee and ground it in the grocery store. And like, I know what that's from. That is that recognition. And I didn't need to have the logo on it. People who already know your brand and know your coffee, again, they will know it there will be other signs, essentially. So leverage that ability of having that recognition by promoting the things that are the most important to you. And not just recognition for yourself, because there is this design mentality of like, what's the hierarchy of, importance?
Yeah.
I talked about our values earlier, and one of them is actively pursue better. We're working on, some of our bag systems, and in that was, okay, well, let's touch up some things. And our wholesale department was, let's just make the logo bigger. Yeah, we want more people to read it. We're going in, we're going into big campuses over the hill. For us, over the hill means over to Silicon Valley. We're just over just on the other side of Silicon Valley. There's a mountain. There's a mountain that separates us, but right over there. So we go into a lot of businesses, and it's just like, they don't know who we are. So let's make it louder. And let's just
use it as marketing.
Let's use it as for me, I'm just like, my entire life, my entire career life, it's always been like, let's make the logo bigger. And it's just like, that doesn't make your brand louder.
Yeah.
That doesn't get your brand in front of more people. Yeah. It's going back to that thought of, what is the thing that you most importantly want to talk about? Mm-hmm. So again, the trend of really small information about what you're actually drinking, is that the best use of the platform we have for the people we are promoting?
As you were talking, I was thinking about, is there any coffee company out there that doesn't have a logo on their bag, but their bag is somehow ubiquitous in terms of, maybe it's a particular color, or like the ketchup label color is specific to the actual ketchup that's inside. Yeah. If it's not the ketchup brand or the Heinz ketchup, it won't match the label. It'll be a different shade of red, the actual liquid inside. And I think, like, I don't know if there's any coffee companies out there that are taking that approach, where maybe it's just coffee information, and maybe their logo is somewhere on the bag, but maybe it's not as prominent. What does that say? What are you communicating when you don't have a massive logo? What are you saying to your wholesale accounts? What are you saying to your retail buyers? You're saying something.
Yeah, you're saying something. I guess it depends on the conversation you have around that. Like, if somebody asks, there's a lot of small intentions with the design on our bag specifically. Like, when I was redesigning them, talking about, going back to the conversation about branding and your promise that you have, we had a heritage. We had this blue bag heritage. And when I was redesigning it, I'm like, well, that's one hand tied behind my back. Like, I can't.
Totally.
Like, I have to respect that, because people love our blue bags, and it's an icon in and of itself. So it's like, okay, I have to respect that. But how do we make things that are more helpful, more useful, and allow us to do our job better? And then I learned about our heritage of, when we were originally planning, we were talking about having, a pink bag. And it was just like, okay, so there is that blue and pink, back to that mentality there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, how can I leverage that? I'm like, okay, blue bags for our house coffees. And it was this mentality of, blue ends up representing us. It ends up representing Cat and Cloud. So all the coffees that we have consistently, that we have put a specific intention to, not that we don't put intention to all of our single origins on the menu, but it's just like, we have a purpose for this blend or this thing. Those go in a blue bag, and it's not that we go out and say it every time. Like, when we say to a guest, like, oh, all the blue bags mean this. We don't say that, but at the same time, there is that intention. And then all the bags that have pink on them, those are all single origins, because pink represents coffee. And so there is this unspoken thing there. And it's really funny when people finally recognize that. They're like, wait, why are some bags pink? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you. And they're like, oh, there's purpose. And then there's even an extra layer on top of that, where the producers' names, they all have different colors based on the regions. So it's like, if you like African coffees, you want the purple label. Or if you like Central American coffees, you want the yellow label. Or there's green for South America. We also have a red for Asian coffees. We don't have a ton of them, but it gets, we have them. And there are these cues. Again, it goes into, guests can recognize your bags without having to have your branding huge. It's just a matter of knowing what you want to say, having that intention with the design, and being able to speak to it. So again, people can hang on to it, to where a guest that comes in, and it's, the first of the month in our cafes, we have a First Friday sale where coffee is, I think, 20% off in our cafes. So people come in and get stocked up. And if they know, I go in and I get the bag with this maroon label, it's just like, you can see it from across the room and not have to like wonder where it is. It's just like, I'm
Sure.
looking for a blue bag. Oh, it's this one with this, maroon label. Great. I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And it's a small thing, but it helps your guests in the morning.
Yeah.
And I have no way of backing that up. I haven't talked to any of our guests to be like, is it easier for you to get coffee off the shelf? I haven't done that, but
Sure.
I've put that intention in there. So if one
Yeah.
person says yes to that, then I'm happy. So other people who are trying to understand if they're working on their packaging and what are you trying to say with it?
Mhm.
Is it all about an aesthetic and is it all just a vibe? That's fine. If that's who you are, then that's totally
right.
fine. I love seeing coffee companies that are just 100% like pure fun. Like it's totally cool. But I just want to know that that's actually what they're saying. But because if they do say, if they do give me that experience, but then they're trying to promise something else, then it's just like, well, I'm a little confused here now.
Yeah.
I think having a big logo or having a small logo, that's part of the promise that you're making, and just communicate the rest of it clearly.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm a little jealous of the pink color because I'm sure you read the research on pink making coffee taste more delicious. I think pink is, there's some sort of, there was some research done not too long ago, and pink, if the vessel is pink, it makes the perceived sweetness is increased. I could be getting the data or the research wrong, but I believe it's something to do with sweetness and pink as a color. And so I didn't know if it was that intentional.
No, the pink literally came from we had that. It was kind of this part of the branding. Pink was in our lexicon of colors because we did have this kind of soft brand, and it is loud. It's not like the quiet, soft, supple pink. It is more of like a cotton candy and bubblegum are the words that are one end of our spectrum that we don't like to get too close to.
Sure.
But people end up putting on us.
Totally.
And so it was part of our heritage. Again, when Chris and Jared and Charles, when they were originally starting the company, they were thinking, oh, well, do we do a pink bag? Like that would be loud. That would be something that would jump off the shelves. And they ended up going with like, I think it was seafoam green or something specific. And so I knew that was there and I was like, okay, well, let's do that. We're at a point now where we can do something more. So let's actually include a pink bag. Like that would be fun. And when I was planning it, it was really funny because I laid out all of our house coffees when I was doing mock-ups and stuff. Like all of our house coffees, and then I would do one single origin. So it'd be like this really nice sea of blue bags and then one pop of pink. And I'm like, oh, great, this is going to look so good. And then we got them in the cafes, and in the cafes, we do have a bunch of our house coffees, but we have a lot of single origins. And so the most thing you see in the cafes now are pink bags. And I'm just like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Totally.
Like now it feels like I have just completely betrayed that blue bag, and it's not, now it's all just pink. And I'm like, oops. But the intention is still there.
100%.
But no, it was more just being true to us and not trying to, wasn't trying to manipulate anybody. It was just trying to, again, be as true as I could to who we were and who we wanted to be. And part of that is this fun, loud, confident coffee company.
Yeah, it's very cool. We always close by asking what are one or two, maybe three books that have been formative for you. Could be personal, could be business, could be design.
I got to tell you, I think I'm just starting to understand that I have some form of ADD, as I'm sure everybody my age is probably starting to realize about themselves. We're starting to sort that out. For me, reading has never been something that I do a lot of, only because I struggle with it.
Yeah, of course.
My attention, and I can make myself do it. I have like 3 books that are technically started, but physically reading books is not the thing that I do the most of. And as I say this now, I'm thinking through like, wait, what's in your Audible library right now, Michael?
Yeah, you can listen to him. Just because you read word for word doesn't mean it doesn't count.
Yeah. Yeah, no, now I'm starting to rethink this. I'm gonna open up Audible and see what I have. And I share this with my partner, so I'm gonna have to dig through some stuff. Okay. How big things get done. That was a good one that I started. Haven't finished it. It backs up that concept of planning is going to help you in the long run. It talks about big projects and how planning them and the things that it takes to do big things can also help small things. For example, and it's something that I just completely believe in. For me personally, and this is less about books, but that book helps support this idea. For me, I live in a world where I believe anything is possible. I think that almost anything could get made. And for me, when I'm working on a project, I know that if I can picture it, if I can break it down in my head, I know that I can make it. And I have this dream house that I have been working on in my head for a decade plus. And I can picture almost every stud. I can picture every wall. And so I'm like, I know that this house is possible. I know that this could be made. And I don't know all the steps to take, but I've planned it out to the point where it's just like, okay, cool, this could be made. And I think that you can apply that mentality to anything you're working on. I get in conversations a lot with people about trying to argue this and say like, oh, we got to come up with a plan. Like, let's do this plan and let's think about it. And the big pushback is, well, nothing's ever going to go according to plan. Like, it's never going to like not, kind of arguing that we don't need to take the time to plan because we're going to have to adapt anyway. So why don't we just keep adapting on the fly? And my argument back is then the goalpost is going to move. If you keep having to adapt and you're not trying to account for things, then what you're trying to do, you're going to lose sight of it. And so
100%.
I was journaling over the weekend and I was trying to understand things that trigger me. And I ended up getting to the point of, I boiled everything down to reaction is bad. So it's like, don't just react, but adapt. So if you know what your goal is, you still need to adapt to get around that hurdle. Can't just react to that hurdle, because then again, that decision you make to react to get over that thing might not be the best decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, how big things get done. Again, good book. I'll let you know how it finishes.
Sure.
But other than that, I think everything in my library is probably something Star Wars, because
very cool.
I just need to escape this world sometimes.
Yeah. I have one follow-up question about your dream home.
Okay.
What is something that because you mentioned that, okay, things do change. And you're going to have to make an adjustment. We have to move this wall over another 1.5 feet to make room for the couch or make room for the fridge or whatever it is. What's one thing in your house that is absolutely non-negotiable? It is going to be there, and it is going to be in this corner or at the entrance. What is the one thing that this has got to be there?
Okay, this goes back to me being in high school. This goes back to the bathroom in the gym at my high school. I had my PE class in the morning. I went to it at 0 period because I wanted to get it out of the way. And I went into the gym in that one morning where class was, and there was one bathroom that's always locked, but this time it wasn't. And this building is actually one of the oldest school buildings in our county, in our area. The high school that I went to, Watsonville High School, was the first high school in Santa Cruz County, and this gym is the oldest building that is a part of that. So this bathroom was old but good, but like nice, and it was always locked. But they had just had a game, and it's probably at this point maybe 8 a.m, and I go in, I was walking past the bathroom, and I always hit the lever because it's always locked, and I hit it and it was unlocked, and I'm like, wait, what? So I walk in, and it was the cleanest bathroom on campus, and it had these almost floor to ceiling windows right on the corner of the building.
Oh, my
and the
goodness.
sun was hitting it at that time. And so I walk in and I'm like, this is how I want to start every day.
Yes.
So for me, the one non-negotiable I have, the primary bathroom is facing, is facing east, facing the sunrise.
Mhm.
And that's just because I want to wake up my days. I want to start my days with the sun.
Totally.
And like, I just want that level of brightness. So that's the one thing where I'm like, that's got to happen.
Are the windows floor to ceiling in this dream house as well?
There's just a lot of them at this point.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Anyway, so that was really impactful. The bathroom at my high school gym that never
Powerful.
got used. That was a non-negotiable.
Understood. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing your perspective of how to develop a marketing ethos is essentially what we talked about, is how to think about what you're doing, how to think about your brand, how to think about your packaging, how to think about differentiation, and what is important on your packaging.
There's just to button that up. It's a little more, it's not just how to think about it, but it's the importance of, no, think about it. Take the time.
Yeah.
And understand who you want to be and what you want to say. And that's going to pay off for you.
Yeah. Have the conversation. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. How do people get in touch if they either want to set up a wholesale account or want to buy some coffee from y'all?
Our website has everything. I forget about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Guests will reach out on our social media. They're like, hey, I want to start a wholesale thing. And because I'm in it, I'm like, oh yeah, you could email Mark or you could, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's systems for this. We have systems.
Go to the website.
Hey, go to our website. It's going to have so much more information than I'll be able to share. I check our social media way too much. It'll be like Saturday afternoon and I'm like, oh, let me check to make sure nothing has happened. This one time before I was in charge of social media for us, we had Mandy Moore come to one of our cafes and like post about it.
Oh my God.
I was like texting the person who I'm like, we gotta repost this. And they weren't responding because it was the weekend.
God.
And I'm like, inside of me, I'm like, I want to make sure that never happens again. But I also recognize that we have things in place for that. So
Totally.
Website catandcloud.com has everything. We've done a really good job of trying to make sure that we're being as helpful as we can there. So yeah, definitely check that out if you're interested. And we will, like I said, this whole time, we'll do what we can to help.
Yeah, it's very cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. And as always, be well.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Hey, it's Luke, and I'm back one last time with 2 questions. Number 1, did you learn anything from that podcast? Or did you stumble upon a new question or a new thing that maybe you're not sure what the answer is? If either of those 2 are true for you, reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me at pomelocoffeeconsulting.com. And there's a contact tab. Reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what questions you have, or maybe what question was answered in this podcast. As always, be well.